Today is Canada's Inflation Day. We are going to be reminded, and the Bank of Statistics Canada will spell out just how fast the cost of living is rising. We're joined now for more on our top line story by Rob Tetreault, Senior Portfolio Manager at Tetreault Wealth Advisory Group at Canaccord Genuity. Rob, you're in Winnipeg. I asked you there during the break, have you seen an example of local inflation? And you were horrified at one price you had to pay.
Yeah, I mean, we paid $120, I think, plus $30 delivery for a Christmas tree. Which is something that might happen in Toronto and Vancouver on a regular basis. But in Winnipeg, you used to pay $50, $60, $70 for a good Christmas tree. But it's not only that, Andy, it's, the lunch. You used to pay $15 for a good lunch. They're all $20 now. And the thing with inflation, Andy, and I think the viewers probably sense this, is that once the individual who's selling you a $20 lunch has sold you a $20 lunch, they're not likely to sell you a $15 lunch if prices move down. So inflation typically doesn't claw back, right? You get your inflation and it's typically there to stay.
That's the interesting thing, the stickiness of it. And of course, then people who rely on those services or products are likely to demand pay raises, and you're at risk of getting into a cycle.
Well, for sure. And there's no way to avoid it. There's kind of two parts to the inflation. The first is the cost of the actual goods, so commodities or whatever you're actually paying for the goods, the head of lettuce or the bun or the ounce of or the 6 ounces of ground beef for your burger. But there's also the wage cost, and we're seeing a lot of wage pressure in Canada because there's individuals that are choosing not to go back to work. The market is tightening. We're seeing that it's difficult for individuals to hire people. So we're in a position now where we're seeing both the cost of goods inflation and the wage inflation. And I believe the data is going to reflect that. Now, I don't think it's the end of the world, however, Andy, but I do think it's something we have to consider.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because the big question is, how temporary will this thing be? Do you think some companies are quietly ramming through price increases, saying, the supply chain, it's a pretty decent excuse, isn't it, if you want to just jack up what you're charging?
Well, I'm a big believer in market forces, and market forces will direct kind of everything. So if you are that company that's jacking up market prices or jacking up prices due to market forces, and it's kind of without purpose or without backing, your competitor might not be doing the same thing. That means if you're doing it and no one else is doing it, you will lose business long term. So I'm a believer that a true market forces will dictate market prices, and therefore eventually either two things have to happen. Either the real cost of goods and services gets passed on to the consumer, which we pay, you and I pay, Andy, or those sellers of goods and services that are kind of overpricing, as you described it, they're going to be out of business because competitors are going to price them out.
I mean, a lot of portfolio managers have told us that you should look for companies with pricing power that aren't subject to relentless competition, companies that sell something special. I mean, for example, Starbucks, I know they just sell coffee, but they do have a world brand that people are familiar with.
Yeah, I think you want goods that are, the elasticity of the good is not going to be impacted by price pressure. So, are you going to buy your Starbucks if it's $10? Most people, I don't know. I don't drink coffee, Andy, but I know that my wife does, and I know that she would probably pay $10 for her Starbucks. So, you want to. You're right, with pricing power. You want a brand that's got that pricing power. You also want brands that are going to automatically pass on the inflation to consumers. Think of a Walmart. If their goods, if the price of what they sell goes up, you can be pretty darn sure that you will pay more for your goods at Walmart. So Starbucks is a great example. Walmart's another good one.